everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Driving Growth in 2025, Enhance Efficiency and Agility with Integration and Automation. Before we get started, we wanted to inform you about our flagship event coming to you in 2025, SAP Concur Fusion, which will be held March 18th through the 20th in Seattle, Washington. We've placed the registration link in the resource widget, and if you're interested in joining us, please register today. Now I'll go over a few quick housekeeping items. Everything you see on your screen is customizable. Hover your mouse over a widget to display your options to rearrange or resize any item on your screen. In the top right corner, you'll find a menu with all the widgets available to support today's event, and I'll highlight a few for you right now. If you have any questions for our presenters, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We'll try to answer these during the webcast, but if more info is needed or we run out of time, we'll send you an email. Please know that we do capture all of the questions. If you encounter any technical difficulties during today's presentation, you could reach out to us through the Q&A widget and we can assist you from there. A copy of today's slides with some other great resources are available in the resource widget. Also, an on-demand version of the webcast will be emailed to you within 24 hours, so don't worry if you missed anything. And we want today's, and finally, we do ask that you take time to complete the survey before you leave. We'd love to know what you thought about today's webinar. Now that that's all out of the way, I'll hand it off to our moderator for today's discussion, Jason Grunin, Principal Value Delivery Consultant here at SAP Concur. Jason, it's all yours.
Thank you, Beth, for that lovely introduction. Happy to be here with you all today. Welcome to our webinar, Driving Growth in 2025, Enhancing Efficiency and Agility with Integration and Automation. As we navigate the uncertainties of the coming year, it's crucial for our organizations to leverage integrated travel and expense management and automated AP solutions or accounts payable solutions to streamline processes and reduce manual effort. By doing so, your organization can make faster, more informed decisions, ultimately positioning yourselves for success in our ever-evolving landscape. We have with us today myself. I'm Jason Grunin, a Principal Value Experience Consultant here at SAP Concur. My team is responsible for assisting customers to make the best out of their automation and solutions around transformative accounts payable and travel and expense management. We're also joined by Rebecca Spanos with the University of North Carolina and Mark Block with Genesis Consulting. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Thank you, Jason. Again, my name is Mark Block, and I work with Genesis Consulting. We are an SAP Concur reseller and certified implementation partner. And I have over 25 years of technology experience helping clients implement technology solutions, primarily in the financial space. And then over 15 years helping clients implement specifically Concur Travel Expense, along with some other platforms. Thank you, Jason. Rebecca?
I've been with university here.
There you go.
Are you? Thanks. Been here for 5 years at University of North Carolina, and I've been for 13 years in the higher education industry.
Thank you for those introductions. Let's jump in. Prior to 2025, the world may still be uncertain, but organizations are moving forward. According to a recent study that the SAP Concur team conducted as a CFO Insights Pulse survey, more than half of senior finance leaders are heavily investing for growth. Companies and organizations of all sizes are investing in their future. And not surprisingly, the survey revealed that 57% are submitting heavily investments as they move forward in 2025. But interestingly, none of the companies surveyed reported no investment in growth. So every single organization in this Pulse survey showed some type of investment in their future, aimed at enhancing efficiency, agility, and overall business performance. As we think about the market, Mark, what do you see on your daily day as you interact with customers of all shapes and sizes?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, really what we're seeing a benefit, looking at the marketplace. And now that interest rates are dropping, there's a lower cost of capital. And that's driving companies to look at investments that in the past maybe have not been, they were cost prohibitive because of inflation. But now with everything dropping from a financial perspective, it really makes it more of a rosy financial picture, and companies can look at making investments to replace some tools that they have that are just outdated or do not really leverage the current technology stack that they already have. And we see that's important as well because, as we all know, maintaining an ERP platform, whether you're using Oracle or SAP or a smaller platform such as Tyler Munis or others, it's very difficult to support those kind of upgrades. And so looking at T&E platforms is an opportunity to leverage that existing investment at a minimal cost. Jason?
Yeah, I think that's really the key here. As you think about where those investments are focused, there are several that are driven towards growth. The areas include cutting edge technologies. And not surprisingly, 63% of finance leaders are investing in those innovative technologies in order to enhance the ability to react to change. That's more than doubled since the 2023 survey was conducted. And not surprisingly, the restructuring for agility, allowing organizations of all sizes to respond quickly to the market, really sets them up for future success. And that really leads to this greater monitoring. We saw, again, almost a 37% increase, almost doubled from where it was, more than doubled from 2023, and just paying close attention to what's going on in the market, both in your vertical, in your industry, with your peers, and outside. Nothing is predictable. And partly leading to how can we be proactive as organizations are taking steps to continuously reduce cost and improve efficiency. And that really brings us to some of the results highlighting and how cost controls are leveraged. And Mark, what have you seen in this space?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, we're really seeing that the importance with these growth versus cost controls is that we're looking for investments that can be made with a relatively low cost, however, provide a great opportunity to better control costs. And one of the things that, some value opportunities, like, for example, with SAP Concur, it's a hosted solution. And so you don't have to make those investments in infrastructure or support. Another opportunity is that you can implement cost controls, because one of the things that's a benefit from a product like SAP Concur is that you don't have to purchase licenses for every user. You really only pay for those travelers that execute trips. So as your business grows and you see a demand for more travel, you can really track those costs directly to the travel, and it does not increase to the specific initiative or project. It does not increase your overhead cost burden as an organization. So really, the benefit there is allows you, if you do start seeing incremental spend around your T&E platform, you can easily attribute that back to a specific business effort, and not just across an overhead perspective.
Yeah, controlling costs can really be a challenge for organizations, and typically it's a balancing act between the growth and controlling costs. So controlling costs are challenging, and typically the most significant challenge is inaccurate forecasting. 73% of organizations struggle with this. Predicting future price rises is another major hurdle, affecting more than 62% of responding organizations. Capabilities and ease of use is also probably the third most problematic challenge. And within all of these cost control problems comes visibility. And the challenge there is there's typically a lack of visibility into travel expenses or employee-initiated spend, which leads to poor support for auditing, as well as an inefficient finance organization due to underperforming processes and unscalable systems. A lot of institutions implemented their ERP or travel and expense management platforms in decades ago. And for the organizations that haven't kept up with the cloud initiative and moving into an integrated world, it poses a significant problem. So, Mark, how does that resonate in trying to find a balance?
Thanks, Jason. I think it's, those are great points. And, as you look at the data here, these are pretty universal that we're seeing across the industry as far as the challenges in managing cost controls. And one of the things we found that when it comes to T&E solutions is that the good news is it's relatively easy to get the data you need for analysis. The challenge, as it always is, from my point of view, it's correctly analyzing that data and really determining for your specific organization, your company, where you can realize the most benefits. Something that's a value or driver for one other company in your industry may be different than yours. Because we're looking at your organization and saying, where are we spending money, and what, based on our business needs and our business objectives, where can we look to reduce cost? And that's where things such as, the benefit of the T&E marketplace when it comes to, T&E solutions, it's a huge market. And it gives you the ability through the data coming out of SAP Concur to track all of your costs as you need to see and view that data. And really, some examples, is your travel overhead, or is it attributable to a billable project or non-billable project? Is your travel or expenses related to a marketing or sales effort? Those are all things that a product like SAP Concur can easily help you track so that you have better insight into the data. And really, by using that data, you can better look at, okay, what is, my investment going to be? If I'm going to have a significant amount of travel, do I need to ramp up my functional support of this platform? Whereas, again, the benefit of a cloud solution is it really provides you that same features and benefits just at a low overhead cost.
Yeah, great points. And as we think about it, and you drill down a little bit further, where does the problem lie? And unsurprisingly, organizations responded that the lack of integration across campus or organizational platforms was the biggest concern. And what does that ultimately lead to? It leads to a number of other compounding problems that ultimately set the organization up for inability to be responsive in a time of need. And as you think about that, use your peer networks. Use and leverage the industry associations and groups to drive into external influencers. Benchmark yourselves against your peers and figure out where you should be. And then leveraging advanced technologies such as AI and machine learning to minimize these potential challenges and analyze and process large amounts of data that patterns may not be visible through traditional audit, right? So use the tools available to you in order to further refine and grow your organization and reduce costs across. So Mark, getting data for this is often a significant issue. So what would you do in your advice here, and what is the market suggestive of this in the future?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, when we look at these types of analysis and trying to understand the drivers, I think from my perspective, it's always gather the metrics now. You need to understand what your baseline costs are. And while there's a lot of industry standards around, the cost per invoice processed or the cost per expense report processed, it's really taking that data and then looking at what's unique within your organization, your university or your company, and we'll say, what are the challenges that we have as an organization that might perhaps inflate that cost, or we really have a lower cost because we have some optimizations in place already. Let's really look, and it's listed right there on the top, integrations. And what we feel is that integrations are perhaps the biggest opportunity when implementing a new T&E solution, but also the biggest risk. And from a risk perspective, it really just boils down to these just have the biggest impact in a schedule delay. Can the IT teams get these integrations built so that the systems can pass data back and forth in a reasonable time according to the agreed upon schedule? And that's where we were seeing more and more activity around things such as connectors that allow companies to easily connect a T&E platform like SAP Concur to their existing ERP systems. So really, when you look at leveraging, the technology or integrations, that's perhaps the biggest opportunity to drive cost savings and manage that. Another key aspect there is the problems of ease of use. And this is something where we see, Concur as a very powerful opportunity in the marketplace, because when we're helping clients that are adopting Concur, we find that many times up to 50% of their users, depending on the specific nature of the organization, they've already used Concur. So they're already familiar with it. And so it makes that second aspect of problems of ease of use, it almost can go away, because not only do you have your user population, your travelers are already familiar with the product, but they can help others that may not be as familiar with it. So we really look at, again, just circling back to integration to wrap up, leverage the value of your existing investments. We see that many times companies don't realize that while I might be bringing in a new T&E solution like SAP Concur, I can use my existing connectors for my ERP, or I can use the pre-built endpoints from SAP Concur for APIs that really reduce the amount of manual effort that a client has to do to get that system live. And then we found that once you get that integration built and you get that, you take care of that second problem as far as ease of use with a product like Concur, its mobile functionality, then it allows you to focus on those other items such as around data, metrics, and reporting.
That's a great part, Mark. I think a lot of organizations that we are speaking to today who haven't implemented an automated solution are still in the world of Excel and manual email approvals and attachments and paper-based forms, which again continue to highlight risk and the inability to manage your platform at a scalable level. As the new workforce and as the workforce changes over, as new generations are coming in to your organization, it's almost like shell shock for some who may have come from others in industry using latest and greatest cloud solutions and almost come back into a dated environment where it's painful, right? And we're going to talk about that pain point in a minute, but it really leads to how do you build efficiency in something that a huge percentage of your workforce touches on a daily basis. Outside of collaborative tools, your travel and expense and AP solutions touch almost every single employee on your campuses or within your organization. So as we think about that and we think about the efficiency to drive growth, coming back to the theme, again, an integrated travel and expense or automated AP solution can really enhance how you gain efficiency and agility within your organization. 61% of organizations surveyed are not using an integrated platform, but do have a roadmap on how to move forward and change. And these systems will ultimately reduce manual effort, improve processes, and enable faster decision making to move forward more quickly. 58% of those surveyed showed that integrations between the booking and expense processing platform is the biggest challenge, and that they ultimately chose solutions that don't have an integrated component between travel and expense. That underscores the widespread recognition of the need that customers are searching for and looking to find a platform that can handle everything from the pre-approval all the way through the reporting suite post-travel. And 43% of organizations surveyed aren't currently using an automated platform for AP or T&E, but do have a plan to switch within the next 2 years. Again, going back to the heavy investment in growth and driving efficiency. From a benefit perspective, the integrated T&E platform that connects and automates the back office function can improve efficiency, lower your cost, allow for more informed decision making, and ultimately a better experience for finance, travel, accounting, audit, and compliance teams, which can lead to a greater return on investment and an enhancement of overall performance within your organization. But as we step back a little bit and think about, is it necessity or is it noise? There's such a myriad activities of processes, time, and systems required to plan travel, manage and reimburse expenses, and pay invoices that it can feel like an endless series of chores for both the front and back office staff. And at the surface, it doesn't seem like the most exciting or compelling work to book a flight from, say, Cleveland to Munich, or manage tax or VAT reimbursements for organizations operating abroad? When you look at it as one of a discrete task, one after another, it's disassociated from the bigger picture, and it's hard to see anything but drudgery. So let's take a little bit of a different look at it. Mark, what would you do in the old days?
So I say I'm old enough I can say back in the good old days. But we used to call individuals, in departments that were like the departmental SME. We called them power users, or we called them super users. And really today, I'll use a modern term. They're influencers. They know the product, and they can use their experience and their abilities to help influence the behavior of other travelers. And that really comes in beneficial around, adoption. Once you select a new platform, you get it implemented, using those influencers to make sure that the product is successful. Because one of the things we've found over and over is that you can have a product that's perfectly configured to meet 100% of your requirements. But if your travelers and your staff are not properly trained and prepared to use this new platform, the adoption rate can be very difficult and have stumbling out of the gate. So really it's getting those key individuals, and that's, also bleeds into OCM and training here. As you talked about, Jason, it's really cutting through the background noise. Get the feedback from those influencers, those people that are in today's world. They're the ones feeling the pain of all the antiquated processes and the disjointed manual steps and using multiple systems. And because those are the individuals that when your travelers have questions or problems, they go to them first. It's really getting those individuals involved and helping to understand exactly what the pain points are to help determine what the future might look like.
Think about that for the future. We're going to come back to that topic of pain points, right? It's important to understand where are the stumbling blocks within your organization as you try to pave a path forward, like many of the respondents are working towards. And let's make them, as we say, moments that matter. So there are all the same business activities as usual, but let's consider them in a broader context, looking at what these tasks are and actually do and how they function within your organization. As it turns out, these spend enablement, settlement, and guidance, compliance, and controls are the foundations for countless moments that matter point in delivering meaningful change, decision, and certainty within your organization and supporting the leaders who run it. Relationships form as a result, and the future of your organization is built or maintained. Let's think about an example from my personal life. I think about it when I have to clean the house. I've got a 3-year-old. It's vacuuming, constant chores, mopping the floors, wiping the crumbs from the dining table, washing the bed linens, changing the sheets, right? And sometimes it's that grumbling task of, can I survive another day and procrastinate through this? When I think of all these dull chores that don't lead into anything particularly positive, it's hard to do them all, especially when they piled up, and it's really hard to do them well. But let's think about what these chores really mean. A clean floor becomes a place for our daughter to safely play and explore, or perhaps a spot for a cozy picnic or tea party, as she would say. The crumb-free dining room table invites friends and families to sit down for a meal. And who doesn't love the smell and feeling of fresh, clean sheets when they crawl into bed at the end of the day? When viewed as enabling important, valuable, or meaningful activities, our perception of these tasks and even our enthusiasm to tackle them improves. And ultimately, it works the same way at business. We are, after all, the same people with the same motivations, or lack thereof. We want to know what things matter and that our time is really well spent. By reframing how you look at travel, expense, and invoicing, you can start to make connections between the infinite moments of what those moments led to. We talked earlier about booking that flight from Cleveland to Munich. Ho-hum. But what if it resulted in your biggest research grant or proposal presentation or achievement of the year from a sales perspective? What if it was the first handshake that led to a strong and long-lasting relationship with a foreign partner? And what about the tax recovery? Who gets excited about taxes? Well, if you're expanding into a foreign country, that's who, those leaders, and your own organization. And think about how employees will benefit by having an automated tool that submits all of your tax recovery automatically. Taxes just got a whole lot more interesting. And when these things are interesting or valuable or meaningful, that means they get done consistently and they get done well. Employees aren't sitting grumbling about doing their next expense report. It's a pleasure rather than a burden. So help your employees see these essential activities lead to improving the employee experience and ultimately their feeling about working for your institution. This positive experience helps encourage compliance with policies, proper use of tools, and better functioning systems that often exceed your expected outcomes. And when it comes to spend management, there are 3 moments of change that really stand out. These moments are everywhere, and never so much as the global pandemic and the return to our new normal. The pace of change, while unprecedented, is here to stay and will likely impact part of your spend management activities. So think about these solutions that enable your leaders to guide the organization and your coworkers and colleagues through whatever comes next. So the first is a moment of decision. Perhaps the most commonly then the moment of change. You and your colleagues make countless business decisions every day. Ensure you have the tools, training, processes, and policies to confidently manage employee spend, to make informed decisions, and to keep your organization running at its best every day. Then there's moments of certainty. And these are the moments that enable responsible business, and never have these moments been more important. From identifying and understanding global, interstate, state, regulatory, federal regulations, to calculating a carbon footprint, the logistics of travel and spend management are becoming increasingly complex. You want tools and trainings that navigate the regulatory, compliance, and tax requirements, provide advice on policies and process, and provide a network of duty of care providers to assist when employees are traveling on behalf of your organization, which ultimately leads to ensuring you're running a sustainable business, not just financially, but from a carbon footprint perspective as well. And that framework for flexibility. We believe at SAP that organizations can manage employee spend in ways that delight and engage employees. With the shared belief and aspiration as our foundation, we can turn our attention to the next part of our framework. How do we do it? And this step requires us to consider the core problems your organization is trying to solve. What are those pain points? And how to define them in a forward-thinking way. First up is spend enablement. We believe the how of employee management begins with employee spend enablement. Simply put, know what your employees are doing and ensure they're required to spend their money, the company's money, the same way you would want them to in a compliant way. The most familiar use case for employee spend is business travel. And for that, we have our online booking tool, by the way, the world-leading Concur Travel. And of course, we want you to use Concur Travel because what we believe, the larger problem and the larger purpose, issue we're trying to address is spend enablement. And we're not going to talk about expense ports right now, but we're willing to bet you don't work for a company whom the creation of an expense report is a KPI. That's because for creating an expense report isn't a goal. It's the settlement. How do you settle the employee purchases as efficiently as possible? You reimburse the employee, pay the supplier, or do what's necessary, including creating the expense report if you have to. But all it's really doing is settling the purchase. Acknowledging that the goal is actually seeking settlement solutions to be truly transformative. It means that at SAP, our ambition is to transform the process from creating an expense report to creating one that writes itself to also innovate settlement solutions, which may over time shrink and evaporate expense reports, and ultimately, maybe one day, eliminate them entirely. And the last part of our framework is this oversight, control, and guidance. We know organizations need more than just spend enablement and settlement. You have to find oversight, guidance, and control over all of those processes. You have to ensure compliance with policies, laws, regulations. You absolutely want to detect and prevent fraud, manage cash flow, forecast budgets. And you want your managers and your spend control owners to know where you're spending and how much you're spending. And guidance, oversight, and control is its own solution. And it's an inherent feature of spend enablement and settlement in a truly managed system. Mark, what do you see in this front from flexibility and managing all of these three things?
Sure, Jason. Just a couple points I'll just share. You talk about settlement, and that's just so important, that how you can drive automation through that. I worked with a company once where it was astounding the amount of back office work they were doing on creating manual GL entries for all their travel expenses because they didn't trust the users on what they selected within the platform. And so there's a lot of opportunities with this modern solution like Concur to help eliminate that. The other function I'll just talk briefly about is on guidance, compliance, and control. And it's, when you're in the public sector, especially the higher education marketplace, for example, doing funds checks and even going to the extent of doing obligations and verifying that funding if you're doing funds and grant management and tracking, travel to a specific grant. It's critical that you capture that information up front the first time to make sure that you are compliant with your reporting guidelines for the different funding sources.
Thanks for that, Mark. And thinking about what is the biggest concern? Are you asking yourself, what is the strategy? And is your solution flexible enough to keep up? How do you balance that flexibility with oversight and control? And what role can travel and expense play in lowering the strain on employees and increasing engagement? And for SAP Concur, it's the 4 value pillars of employee experience, controls and compliance, expansion and optimization, and spend management. So Mark, how does a solution do all of these things? Can it?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I think it's really, when we've looked at different products in the marketplace, beyond just SAP Concur, we really have found that SAP Concur is really the only platform out there that really has all of these, it checks the box, so to speak, on all these different components. It gives you the visibility from a reporting and analysis perspective. Where's my money going? Compliance and controls. It gives you the ability, again, to do those funds and grants management, or to do funds check, and make sure that you have the proper controls in place that travel is approved or reviewed before the employee is reimbursed. The employee experience, again, using the mobile or tablet-based solutions to really give the employee the flexibility to do more of that work on the go. Then finally, just touching on expansion optimization. That's a great benefit of a product like Concur. It's hosted on the cloud, so as your use grows or perhaps drops down because of perhaps M&A or divestiture activity, you still leverage the benefit of that platform, regardless of your size.
Regardless of size, right? It's as one of our customers quoted, innovation is in our market is key to leading the way. And SAP Concur solutions are the cornerstone to enable innovation. And this is really about setting yourself up for success. How do you go back to being flexible and fluid, as our pulse survey responded with, being able to adapt to market conditions to reach your organizational business outcomes faster and more effectively? So Mark, how does innovation play into the things that you're seeing as you're releasing and working with organizations as they're coming to you for advice?
Sure. The biggest buzzword, it's more than a buzzword, it's here to stay, is AI. And so we have a lot of companies wondering, how can I leverage the latest AI functionality, and can I use that? Because we've heard from more than one potential customer that that if I use AI in my business case, then it's a double-edged sword. Either they're going to be excited because we're leveraging new exciting technology, or they're going to be pessimistic because the ability and capabilities of AI is still in its infancy, so to speak. So we really focus on things like that. What are their risk tolerance? But I also one of the things I remember hearing about years ago, probably about a decade ago, was about innovation. And a lot of companies will say, well, I define innovation as something that's brand new in the marketplace. And we really look at innovation as something different. If it's something's out there, but it's not within your organization, that's still an innovation exercise. Because you are using better technology, better solutions than you have today. So really, it's just being open-minded about what your university or your company is wanting to do, and then be able to map the capabilities of these solutions to help your entity move forward, whether it's with your goals, whether it's cost reduction or is improving user experience, or all of the above.
It's a great point, right? And that's also what leads us to a second quote from an organization who implemented SAP Concur in 2019. And in the first 12 months, they were able to deliver $1.6 million of savings out of a significant travel spend. And ultimately, again, it comes back to embracing and adapting to the market and showing how a solution can deliver both cost savings, but increase that employee satisfaction. And that's why I'm pleased to spend the next bit of time with Rebecca Spanos, the Director of Travel and Payment Card Services at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Rebecca brings a wealth of experience in managing travel and payment card services, and we're excited to have her share her insights with us today. So, Rebecca, a little snapshot of UNC up on the screen, but maybe a quick hello and thinking about what's on top of mind for you as an integrated T&E and automated AP solution at UNC. Has it helped create a more agile and efficient organization for you?
Absolutely. I was reflecting actually as you guys were talking, as I'm just about to hit my 5th anniversary here at the university. And I actually joined the team here at UNC Chapel Hill with the direct purpose of implementing this integrated program that we have stood up. When I interviewed for this position, I was shocked that I was interviewing at UNC Chapel Hill, and they didn't have a corporate travel card program. They didn't have an online booking tool. They had an old archaic expense system that was homegrown, but it still required every single one of their employees to be set up as vendors in their accounts payable system in order to be reimbursed. And just the lack of efficiency, the lack of data insight was mind-boggling at such a prestigious university. So I was very excited to join this process and this team and be able to really truly bring the university into the current state of what was available to them and modernize the entire program and bring about a lot of efficiencies and strategies with that. One of the things I think that has been really helpful for us is Concur is a very malleable software tool. There's lots of different options that you can utilize within the Concur platform. And not every single thing is going to work for your organization, but you have the ability to pick and choose and get the right combination put together to meet your needs and to meet the needs of your end users and ultimately your organizational goals. And we really appreciate that because, we have a lot of different faculty and staff who have come to Chapel Hill. They've had experience with Concur in the past, but then they get to experience Chapel Hill's version of it, which may be slightly different than what they've been working with previously.
I've had the pleasure of working with Rebecca in the past, and I'll maybe kind of throw her a little curveball here, but it's definitely about change, right? And positioning that nothing should be static. Would you
Absolutely.
say things are the same at UNC as they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or are you continuously adapting to the market?
Continuously adapting for certain. And I think that's one of the most important things that you have to be in the travel and expense world is agile and willing to accept and roll with change. It's the only constant truly that you have in your life. And there's been a lot of change in the travel and expense marketplace over the last few years, not just because of COVID, but because of different industry factors going on. And so we've had to consistently adjust to that, to listen to what leadership wants to see from us, what our end users want to see from us, and continue to make improvements, continue to figure out what is working that we can, maybe bolster, what isn't working that perhaps we need to think about differently and implement new solutions for. One thing that we did recently was we implemented our own internal support desk. We really found that our end users, while they were reaching out to the Concur support desk, they wanted to talk to people that actually spoke UNC Chapel Hill and not just who were knowledgeable about the Concur software tool. So they've really got that double resource of both the technical experience and knowledge, as well as the university policy knowledge to bring to the table and truly help them holistically.
So thinking about that agility, right? How is implementation of the SAP Concur solutions within UNC aligned with organizational strategic goals, such as innovation, expansion, cost leadership, et cetera?
Cost leadership definitely comes to mind. Our leadership here truly believes in the value and the cost savings that a managed travel program can provide to an organization. And, our old homegrown tool, it was as good as it could be, but you literally could not differentiate between a rideshare expense and a car rental expense, much less be able to drill down into the actual merchant level detail of who you were spending money with. We really had a huge challenge to overcome there to get our arms wrapped around the spend data. And now having a tool like Concur lets us aggregate all of that information in one place, whether it is out-of-pocket expenses or expenses happening on our corporate card program. It's all coming into the same ecosystem and lets us not only know when we're spending our money, but who we're spending it with and where we're spending it. And data truly is power. It's going to give us a much better opportunity to position ourselves for success in the future.
So I know you just shared a little bit about it recently with the implementation of an internal support desk, but what other change management strategies have you found efficient and effective in order to ensure a smooth adoption of an integrated solution by your constituents or your employees?
Yeah, our change management team is amazing here. We have a wonderful collaborative group of our IT resources, communications experts, training, brilliant people that create our training materials. And we work together very closely as we were implementing the product, but then we continued to work together closely as new opportunities have come available. The training, I think, and the education piece is one of the most important things that we have, because we want to make sure that our end users truly have the resources that they need to be successful in the tool. So as we implemented and we put out a host of different resources, we realized some of these aren't working for our end users. We had computer-based trainings, for instance, that were rather long and chunky because there was a lot of information to provide. And you could bounce around in the navigation if you knew how to do that, but our users really wanted those quick sound bites, those quick little vignettes of the specific thing that they wanted to learn how to do or learn how to accomplish. And so we had to pivot and realize that this big, long, chunky training wasn't what our end users needed or wasn't what they wanted. And so by providing them and giving them that voice to come to us and say, here's what we'd like to receive, we were then able to turn around and work with our change management team to provide that back to them.
Bringing back my higher ed days for a minute, I remember one of the most insightful moments I had in change management was that we had a whole department within one of our business colleges devoted to organizational development and change management. And I remember using that class as a senior project to implement and develop a strategy to roll out a particular platform to campus. Mm-hmm. And so many of the institutions, you have so much future talent sitting right at your disposal. Use them and use the insights of your own education processes to learn and develop your campuses and your organizations. So thinking about that And thinking about integration and automated solutions, how did these changes prepare UNC for future growth and technological enhancements and advancements such as AI and machine learning? Where are you on that?
So I know you said we weren't going to talk about expense reports earlier, and if you know someone who says that they like doing expense reports, I want to hire them, because I don't think it's ever the fun part of someone's day, but the really great thing with all the technological advances that are on the horizon is it's making the expense report process so much simpler. Whether it is the machine learning of the system getting to know you as an individual and what kind of expenses you're incurring, what kind of trips you're taking, so that it can better prepare those expense reports on your behalf, or the AI, being able to type into a query, hey, I'm trying to find out the answer to this policy, and being able to quickly find that answer without having to know immediately, like, okay, I have to go to this website, to type it a certain way, and navigate around. There's so many different tools that are coming forward for our end users that are really going to make this process so much more seamless, so much more user-friendly for them, and really give them the opportunity to get back to the amazing value-added work that they can provide to your organization. There's going to be a lot of different technology that comes forward, and as I mentioned before, like, it's not all going to be the right fit for your organization. You're not going to want everything necessarily. But having a system that you can test and figure out, like, hey, there's this new opportunity. Does this make sense for us to give it a try? It's really important to take advantage of those chances. I know we recently took a look at the request assistant feature, which will utilize AI to approximate your expenses based on your dates and destinations of travel. Not something we've implemented yet, but could be an incredible time saver, because who wants to have to go out and search for all your travel and then go put it in and get permission to book it and then go actually back and book it? It's a lot of steps. And so having that request assistant tool could be a really great resource for our end users to just, again, save time and still have the benefit of getting those approximate costs loaded into there.
I love how you're using and thinking about methods and tools to bring continuous improvement to your platform, and how you're using them to think about the efficiency of your T&E and AP processes. So what other things would you recommend to organizations looking at an evolution of an automated platform for them to think about as they roll out and continue to deploy a program?
Yeah, and continuous improvement, as we talked about, I think is the linchpin. You can't roll out a system and just assume it's going to stay static, that it's going to roll out and be perfect immediately when you launch it, and you're never going to have to go back in and make any changes or make any additions or adjustments. Truly, truly important to listen to the voice of your customers. And that can be done in a myriad of different ways, whether it's, formal surveys that you're asking them to fill out and complete, or just the day-to-day feedback that you receive. You can't promise the world, you can't fix everything overnight. But if you're getting the same consistent feedback from your end users, then you understand, we've got an opportunity here to make this better. And that's truly what we're trying to do, is provide them with a solution that, again, lets them get through the mundane, lets them get through the stuff that they don't enjoy doing necessarily, and lets them get back to that truly value-added work that they've got to be able to provide to your organization. On top of that, I think policy review is a really important step, both pre-implementation, making sure you know what you want to achieve with this tool, and then checking in on it periodically over time after you've implemented. If you've got we had a great example of this. We had a policy in place for international travel where if it exceeded 8 hours, you were permitted to upgrade your airline ticket. Well, we're on the East Coast. We have a lot of folks going to the West Coast of Europe. And that outbound flight is, in a lot of cases, under 8 hours. So technically, by policy, they weren't allowed to upgrade. But it was kind of silly. And it wasn't working for anyone. And it wasn't, making it a great experience for our travelers to go to the West Coast of Europe. So we took that opportunity to say, you know what? It's time for a policy change. And we were able to push that through and enact a change that was a positive experience then for all of our travelers. The last thing I think I'll mention is, and you talked about this earlier, was benchmarking with your peers. That is really, I think, a critical component to understanding how are other people utilizing this tool? How are organizations similar in composition and size? How are they utilizing this software? And are there things we could be doing differently based on how they've chose to stand it up? I think in higher education, we do a lot of benchmarking. We talk to our peers a lot and a lot of sharing, which is a great opportunity for us. But it really is enlightening to see the different ways that not only are there the traditional ways of using the software tools, but all the unique and inventive ways that other organizations have found to make it work for them as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for all those valuable insights. Now let's turn back to our partner, Mark Block with Genesis Consulting. Mark, can you give us some steps on what organizations should be thinking about and how to take some action and driving growth in 2025?
Certainly, Jason. And thank you, Rebecca, for your insights and your feedback. Appreciate hearing that. Really what we look at is if you're looking to make a change, I think the biggest thing is what are your requirements? And these can be compliance requirements. These can be audit requirements. These can be functional business requirements. What are your travel policy requirements? Make sure you have the visibility into all those different assets and regulations that can drive and impact expense processing. The other part is to document your pain points. What pain do your administrators feel? Do your power users feel? Or your travelers feel? And so one of the things that we do, Genesis, we actually have adopted, it's called SAP Elevate. It's a workshop that's done to help clients typically at the ERP level to understand, what's your business processes, what are your pain points, and really over the course of several weeks, you map out and you document what a future state would look like. And so we've adopted the same platform, the same approach, but we did it in one day. And as I was just mentioning, we document what are your goals, what are your compliance requirements, your business requirements. We focus on, first that big picture that would be the happy path, and then start identifying all the different variations from once you've established that baseline travel workflow, so to speak. What are the exceptions? This is where, like Rebecca was talking about, the international travel. When the international travel, okay, well then what's a variation in that? And then we focus on, once you understand, we map out what that end-to-end business scenario is and what that best case looks like. It's only then, when that's all done, do we start saying, okay, based on all this documentation, what might be the best tool or platform to address those requirements? I remember early in my career as a BSA, there was a lot of discussion around, should your requirements be driven by business requirements or should they be driven by technology requirements? If you already know you're going to be adopting a tool, sometimes we let that artificially influence our requirements. Say, well, I talked to a friend, they said Concur doesn't do that, so that's, they're not going to meet our requirements. And that's why we caution about focusing early on, is talking about systems. This entire process, this Elevate workshop, it's only at the very end of the day do we talk about what is the technical solution that might be possible. It's really focusing and just helping influencers and decision makers to draw out, again, what are your pain points, what are your workflows, what's that end-to-end process, what should it look like, and then figure out, as we have on the end here, what's the expert solution that we would come up with.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's really valuable, and again, really highlights the need and critical piece of determining and mapping out what are your key requirements and what are those pain points. And as you consider your next steps to find a truly integrated and automated travel and expense and AP solution, and look for a seamless employee experience that reduces screen switching and provides the most in-the-moment guidance, along with apps, generative AI, and quick and accurate categorization and itemization of expenses, we present the additional requirements of looking for a solution that offers a global language, currency, and helps with regulatory capabilities to drive artificial intelligence to catch potential fraud, and full analytics suite tailored for both executives and day-to-day managers. SAP Concur is a great fit because of the initial features and decades of T&E experience, with an expansive partner ecosystem to support growth. As we conclude the webinar, we do have some questions that have come in from the audience, and we do have time for a few of them. So let's just jump right in. Rebecca, it looks like this first one's for you. What are the greatest challenges when controlling costs, both before and after implementing a solution?
I think before implementing the solution, it was definitely access to the data. We just did not have a way to understand where things were being booked, how they were being booked, how expenses were being incurred, advanced purchase. Everything was a mystery to us. We really just were a very base level of understanding of where our spend was happening. Now that we have a tool where we can actually see it and we can wrap our arms around it, I think our biggest barrier to cost compliance is education of our end users. We are still, I think, very much in the infancy of our program. It's been 3.5 years, give or take, that we've launched, but there's a lot of folks that may not have traveled yet. And so the first time they get in there, how do we get that information to them to make sure they understand how to make the right decisions and empower them with the knowledge that they can go out and feel good about the way that they're traveling on behalf of the organization.
Thanks, Rebecca. We've got time for one more question. Mark, from a real-world perspective, should travel and expense solutions be integrated?
I would say absolutely. Absolutely, they should be, because that's really the only way you're going to start realizing the benefits of having Concur within your technology footprint, so to speak. And the great news of what we really look at as SAP Concur, and we look at, and understandably, we feel that when it comes to integrations, API should be the focus, because that's the current and the future state. But we also look at clients and really help them determine, okay, what's the best integration methods? If you have a business requirement that doesn't justify the cost of building an expensive API, then perhaps let's just look at maybe a simple SFTP, which saves the client money, and it doesn't provide them a solution that's overly complicated for their business needs. So absolutely they should be, but the key is just understanding what your business needs, and then having that drive what your integration footprint should look like.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And apologies, we ran out of time for additional questions. We'll be sure to follow up with you via email. And as a reminder, if you missed any of the presentation or want to review it again, you'll be able to download a copy of the slides here in the resource section, and you will receive a link to the recording within the next 24 hours. Please be sure to complete the session survey before you exit for feedback on today's presentation. And that will conclude our webcast for today. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.